Until recently, it was believed that space was completely silent. A void where there is no sound, no vibrations, no signals of any kind, only cold and vacuum. But when spacecraft traveled far beyond the boundaries of our solar system, they detected something that shouldn't exist at all. A faint but steady vibration, electromagnetic signals, and strange noises that scientists couldn't even explain at first. If we once thought that beyond Pluto's orbit there was just empty space, the Voyager mission completely shattered that idea. Two identical spacecraft, launched just 16 days apart, unexpectedly began to rewrite our entire picture of interstellar space.
Until quite recently, the scientific community, like ordinary people, believed that interstellar space was absolutely silent. You definitely won't hear a single sound there. But during recent space missions, it turned out that this is far from the case. Just listen to the sounds recorded in space by the Voyager 1 spacecraft. How could it have appeared in a place where no signs of life have been detected? These are far from the only discoveries we've made during the Voyager mission. Before that, Voyager 2 discovered information that made scientists reconsider the established data about the density of interstellar space. The circumstances turned out in such a way that we were able to learn about this only now. What exactly are Voyager 1 and Voyager 2? What is the difference between them? And which Voyager turned out to be more useful to science overall? The original mission of these spacecraft was to study the 4 largest planets in our system, namely Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter. According to NASA scientists, in the second half of the 20th century, these celestial bodies were expected to be positioned in such a way that their gravity would help increase the speed of the Voyagers. If they had been launched either too early or too late, the mission could have been considered a failure. It was important not to miss the moment, because the planets would be in the same position again only after 176 years. If the mission had failed, we wouldn't have recordings of space noises or unique photos of the giant planets at our disposal now. So, what were the differences between one spacecraft and the other? In terms of specifications, they are absolutely identical. The length is 2.5 meters, the weight is almost 800 kilograms, 16 thrusters, and a memory unit for storing 67 megabytes of information. You probably have a question. Since the Voyagers are basically identical, why do they differ so much in effectiveness? The mission began at Cape Canaveral in Florida in the summer of 1977. That's when scientists launched Voyager 2 into space. Its twin brother were sent 16 days later. Since then, both spacecraft have been exploring space, and the difference in launch times put Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 in different conditions. So how did both spacecraft operate in space? Although Voyager 2 spent more time in space than Voyager 1, it was the latter that initially had more advantages. That's because the spacecraft performed gravitational maneuvers, which allowed it to reach Jupiter several months earlier than its twin brother. In the spring of 1979, Voyager 1 added to its list of achievements with data about 2 previously unknown moons of Jupiter and photographs of volcanic activity on another moon of the giant planet. Voyager 2 was also busy trying to catch up with the other spacecraft. This paid off, so soon there was data about a new moon of Jupiter, Adrastea, and the first images of the planet's rings. About the moon, it is located in one of Jupiter's rings, and it's impossible to detect it by observing from Earth. If it weren't for Voyager 2, we might never have learned about Adrastea. How did things go with Voyager 1? In the early 80s, it provided images of Saturn and data about its new moons Pandora, Atlas, and Prometheus. As soon as the information was processed on Earth, Voyager 1 changed its course and headed beyond the boundaries of our solar system. Voyager 2 also reached Saturn 9 months later and took pictures of the planet. After that, the spacecraft reached Uranus and took pictures of it to gather information about its temperature conditions. That's how we learned that Uranus can be classified as the planet with the lowest temperatures in the solar system, namely almost 60 Kelvin, which is minus 214 degrees Celsius. Voyager 2 didn't stop there, and just 3 years later, it photographed Neptune and recorded storm activity in the southern part. The spacecraft became the only spacecraft to explore 4 planets in our solar system. In this, Voyager 2 surpassed its twin brother. After exploring Neptune, it powered down. It shut down its recording devices and set off to study the space between the stars. Let's get back to Voyager. It was also supposed to shut down its recording devices, but before that, at a distance of 6 billion kilometers from the Sun, on February 14, 1990, it took a picture of the solar system known as the Family Portrait. And one of the most popular and incredible photos was called the Pale Blue Dot, which shows our planet Earth. So both Voyagers have left the solar system. What awaited them beyond its boundaries? Voyager 1 broke another record, becoming the most distant human-made object from Earth. Let's add to that a record-breaking speed of 17 kilometers per second. With these characteristics, Voyager 1 flew through the solar wind region and ended up directly in interstellar space. But Voyager 2 in 2012 became the spacecraft with the longest running mission since 1977. The most interesting part began in 2018. As soon as Voyager 2 entered interstellar space, it immediately detected something strange. Since school, we were told that space is absolutely silent, a vacuum, but it turned out to be different. The fact is that the density of solar wind is about 10 particles per cubic centimeter. When crossing the edge of the solar system, the density is already 2,000 electrons. However, when Voyager 2 was already at a considerable distance from the Sun, almost 19 billion kilometers, the sensors recorded an increase in density to 0.12 electrons. Right now, scientists are not ready to name the specific reasons for this phenomenon, but with new data in the future, the situation could change dramatically. Let's pay a little more attention to Voyager 1. Moreover, its discoveries are no less interesting. Listen to this sound. This is how plasma vibrates, which is most commonly found in outer space and is a component of stars. Such plasma appears when the plasma of the Sun collides with interstellar space. There's nothing extraordinary about this, but 4 years ago, in 2017, the instruments on Voyager 1 detected a faint, only 3K but continuous signal in space. It lasted for about 3 years. All this time, Voyager 1 was moving farther away, increasing the distance, but the frequency of the signal remained the same. And what will happen next? The spacecraft will no longer be able to return to Earth. In 40,000 years, Voyager 1 will pass very close to the star Gliese 445, which is located in the constellation Camelopardalis, and it will continue to travel through the Milky Way. His twin brother, in addition to encountering a cluster of comets near the solar system, will, after the same amount of time, fly not far from the constellation Andromeda and the star Ross 248. Then it will move in the direction of Sirius and Canis Major. It's sad to realize that we definitely won't witness that. When the Voyagers run out of fuel, they'll still be able to travel through the universe. but they won't be able to send data back to Earth anymore. Starting in 2034, we won't be able to learn anything more about Voyager 2, and starting in 2040, about Voyager 1. That's the story. So which of the spacecraft turned out to be more successful? Here's the answer. You can't say that the first or the second Voyager is better. Each turned out to be useful in its own way. For example, Voyager 1 was the fastest, and the hardest working was Voyager 2. Orbital imaging changed our perception of the world around us once and for all. Images of Earth from space have radically expanded our understanding of the world around us. They allowed us to look at life on an incredibly global scale. Now we are able to track how entire cities, countries, and ecosystems change over time. Every action of humanity has its own consequences. Now we can see them with our own eyes, how our planet is changing, and what discoveries we can make by looking at our world from a bird's eye view. Before you is a tiny town in the Mojave Desert, Nevada. In just 30 years, this small settlement has turned into a giant metropolis with the most vibrant nightlife. You've all heard about it. This is Las Vegas. But if you look to the right at the Colorado River, you'll notice how it shrinks in size as the city grows. Why does this happen? Researchers from the University of Colorado believe that the river is drying up because of climate change. In any case, according to forecasts, it will continue to decrease by 11% each year until it completely disappears. Every day, right before our eyes, cities are growing and developing faster than at any other time in our history. Every week, about 3 million people move to a city. If this trend continues, according to forecasts, by 2050, 68% of the world's population will live in cities. Moreover, humanity is not only expanding its megacities, but also changing the landscape of the planet to suit its needs. This is Dubai, the largest city in the United Arab Emirates. The story of its rapid growth is astonishing. In just a few decades, it has transformed from a desert village into one of the most luxurious and wealthy cities in the world. The Palm Islands, which were artificially constructed here, are called the eighth wonder of the world. During the construction of this lavish project, the builders had to fight against the forces of nature every day, as the water relentlessly washed away the stones and sand that were piled up to build the island. To protect Palm Island from the destructive impact of the waves, they even built breakwaters out of huge blocks of sand and stone, weighing about 6 tons. However, despite the luxury, such structures worry environmentalists. What's the issue? The fact is, such interventions in the environment wreak havoc on marine organisms and their habitats. In addition, they destroy coral reefs, which are a food source for fish. And yet, in the near future, progress may go even further, and even more luxurious structures may appear on the water in this region. The growth of civilization means that we are developing successfully. But what consequences does this have for nature? The more our industry develops, the more waste we leave behind. In this shot, you can see the largest airplane graveyard in the middle of the Arizona desert. There are more than 400,000 decommissioned airplanes here. The total value of all this property is over $35 billion. Famous movies like Transformers and Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man were filmed here. And here, in Bangladesh, you can see a ship graveyard, more than 20 kilometers along the coastline. And if you go to Kuwait and look at this area from space, it looks like a strange black mosaic. What is this? You're looking at the largest landfill of car tires. In order to exist, we exploit all available natural resources. You're looking at Chile. In the middle of the local salt flat, we see blue spots appearing. These are evaporation ponds where lithium is collected for mobile phone batteries. And this is Germany. Here, the open pit mine that supplies brown coal to the power plant expands every year. But the most serious damage is done to the forests. Before the development of human civilization, there were about 6 trillion trees. To date, we have already cut down half of the trees on the planet, and every year we cut down another 10 billion. Every minute we destroy a forest area comparable to the size of 40 football fields. According to the Brazilian National Institute for Space Research, in 2020 the rate of deforestation in the Amazon rainforest was the highest in the last 12 years. These trees produce 20% of the world's oxygen, but according to current data, they will completely disappear by 2050. Satellites come to the rescue. They help monitor forests, quickly detect illegal logging, and take prompt action. Few people know, but trees are important to us because they absorb carbon dioxide produced by our industrial activities. Because there are fewer and fewer trees, the balance in our atmosphere is being disrupted. This provokes global warming and an increase in the temperature on the surface of the Earth. What does this lead to? The most noticeable consequence of global warming is the melting of glaciers. The temperature in the Arctic has already increased twofold. In these images, you can see the changes. And if we move to Alaska, today the glaciers here are melting 100 times faster than previously predicted. It's getting warmer in Greenland as well. The rate at which the local glaciers are melting is now 7 times higher than it was in the 1990s. What does this mean for us humans? The more glaciers melt, the higher the sea level rises. According to the latest data, the sea level is now rising by 3.6 millimeters every year. This is the highest rate in our history. If this trend does not slow down and the sea level continues to rise, by 2050, we will face massive floods, and we risk losing 800 million people. The greatest risk is in populated areas that border seas and oceans. London, New York, Tokyo. These areas will be the first to go underwater. However, flooding is not the only problem caused by global warming. Hurricanes. Thanks to satellites, we can track them in advance and track their paths to see where they will strike. In recent years, the number of disasters related to hurricanes has increased. Climatologists believe that the increase in hurricanes is connected to the rise in carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. The associated increase in average annual temperatures, in their opinion, has disrupted the circulation of heat in the atmosphere. Hurricanes are that excess heat. All this suggests that if we do not start fully combating global warming, the destructive impact of hurricanes that reach the continents will affect not only coastal areas, but also regions far from the sea. The next problem associated with global warming is massive fires in forests and fields. Thanks to the satellite view at night, you can see for yourself why they happen. Every second, about 50 lightning strikes hit the Earth. As the climate changes, their number increases, and the fires they cause are becoming more frequent. For example, the fire in Australia in 2020, which resulted in the death of about 1 billion animals. How can we stop this disaster? We need to monitor such disasters from space in a timely manner and take all necessary measures promptly. Even though fires have become a widespread phenomenon across the planet, satellite images allow us to observe the remarkable ability of nature to recover. In these images, you can see how new trees have grown in the place of the burned forest, and the entire area has become green again in just 3 years. Nature is capable of recovering on its own. The important thing is just to stop destroying it. It's nice to see that humanity is already taking action. Various forest restoration projects make it possible to revive deforested areas. For example, the experience of Ethiopia, where in just 7 years a scorched desert was turned into a beautiful green forest. And the Madagascar restoration project made it possible to restore rare tree species and endangered animal species, such as lemurs, which are considered the most threatened group of mammals in the world. However, restoring nature is not the only important step we have taken. Alternative energy sources are spreading all over the world, allowing us to generate electricity without harming the environment. Giant wind farms, visible from space, produce cheap energy without harming the surrounding ecosystem. And the output of solar farms can surpass that of dangerous nuclear power plants. How is this possible? In front of you is the world's largest solar power plant, Benban Solar Park, in Egypt, on the edge of the Sahara Desert. The capacity of this power plant is 1,800 megawatts, which is 80 more than the capacity of the reactor that exploded at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant and released a monstrous amount of radioactive substances into the planet's atmosphere. I think this comparison alone should convince you of the benefits of solar energy, because Benban Solar Park will never explode. An area of 37 square kilometers is completely covered with 6 million photovoltaic modules. But think about it. The hot Sahara covers 9 million square kilometers, which is almost the size of countries like the USA or China. You could easily fit 240,000 such parks in it. Amin Al-Habebe, a professor at Nottingham Trent University, is confident that the Sahara Desert alone could provide an amount of clean electricity 7,000 times greater than the needs of all of Europe, and could easily cover the energy consumption of all humanity with plenty to spare. In addition, some calculations show that the Sahara Desert could turn into a green and blooming valley, since part of the scorching sun's energy would no longer reach the surface. Perhaps in the future we will learn to develop without harming the planet, and thanks to satellite imagery, we now have the ability to monitor this. What do you think future Martian colonists see as their main task? Of course, in terraforming and settling a lifeless celestial body. But is it really that barren? The probes tirelessly roaming the red planet, especially Curiosity, prove otherwise. For example, the recently mentioned device sent a photo in which an unknown creature, previously unseen by science, is clearly visible, although it is completely petrified. Astronomers immediately named the strange creature Shampoo, as it resembled a grotesque, shaggy dragon, and began to puzzle over what it could be. Perhaps Martian pioneers have a mistaken idea of what life on the red planet is like. What if, in reality, it is filled with various creatures that, for now, are hiding in caves and rock crevices? However, let's get back to Shampoo. At the moment, Curiosity is exploring the Gale Impact Crater, specifically the area around Mount Sharp, in places where clay soils transition to sulfate rocks. The rover fully lives up to its name, Curiosity, because it really is very curious. After all, it is Curiosity that is responsible for a number of amazing discoveries, which we will mention a little later. According to Life Science, the rover came across Shampoo on July 27, 2021. The object is very small. Its height is only about 16 centimeters, but that does not diminish the importance of the discovery. With a bit of imagination, you can see an iguana or some other exotic creature in the bizarre fragment of Martian rock. This happens not only to people with pareidolia, the tendency to form illusory images based on real objects, but also to perfectly healthy observers. So the stone Shampoo, what are you? There are 4 main theories about the appearance of the strange figure in the rusty Martian dust. Oceanic reef. Such formations appear due to the effects of seawater. It's no wonder Mars is called a planet that once harbored life. It is believed that billions of years ago, vegetation flourished here, vast oceans spread out, endless seas and clear lakes existed. It's symbolic that the rover discovered a mysterious texture at the foot of Mount Sharp, which is located almost in the center of the 154-kilometer Gale crater and rises 5.5 kilometers above it. Its appearance here is attributed to the erosion of sedimentary rocks, that is, their destruction by flowing water. Thus, Champo may well represent part of a reef formation, a product of Martian lightning. Curiosity took a detailed image thanks to the highly sensitive ChemCam camera and the remote RMI microscope. This allows the structure to be examined in detail. Soon, scientists concluded that this could be a fulgurite, a mineral that forms as a result of a lightning strike. On Earth, it is quite rare, mostly found in mountainous regions. Astronomers are well aware of Martian thunderstorms, which is why a certain group of specialists classified Champo as a fulgurite. Interestingly, the lightning capable of turning sand, quartz, silica, and other rocks into fused glass tubes must have incredible power. After all, the melting point of sand, for example, is over 1,700 degrees Celsius. It's not surprising that similar structures are also left behind after ground-level nuclear explosions. A figurine made of lava. The third version is quite prosaic. The structure discovered at the boundary of clay sulfate soils appeared as a result of past volcanic activity on the red planet. That is, Champo is a kind of monument to ancient Martian eras, since Gale Crater is about 3.8 billion years old. A representative of Martian fauna. This is one of the most exotic hypotheses, suggesting that the strange structure is nothing more than a little animal that was petrified millions of years ago after being struck by lightning. Or, as another possibility, it was covered by lava. If that's the case, then it means there was life on Mars after all. Is it possible that some forms of it have survived to this day? Let's leave the answers to these questions to gray-haired scientists, and let's recall what else the Curiosity probe managed to find during its 9 years on Mars. Right now, the probe is moving along the slope of Mount Sharp, continuing to study the local soil in detail. It keeps coming across interesting discoveries which are abundant in Gale Crater. It is noteworthy that almost all the artifacts discovered by the rover are given human characteristics by ordinary people and even by astronomers themselves. Remember pareidolia and the legendary face called the Martian Sphinx, which was photographed by Viking 1 in 1976. As a rule, illusions do not correspond to reality. They are the result of the play of light and shadow or the angle from which the picture was taken. Nevertheless, Curiosity has made a few amazing discoveries. In 2013, attentive observers noticed a structure in one of the images that looked just like a petrified frog. And a year earlier, the Martian probe saw something on the red planet that resembled a fragment of a human finger with a clearly visible fingernail. These aren't the only discoveries. In the Gale Crater, Curiosity at different times discovered a stone rat, a human femur, a German soldier's helmet, a Martian flower, and the remains of an unknown animal, and even something resembling a door handle shining fiercely under the sunlight. And are all these just visual illusions? Don't you think there are a bit too many of them? By the way, on April 3, 2013, Curiosity sent a photo to Earth of a mysterious fire against the background of a mountain ridge rising on the horizon. Scientists attributed the phenomenon to technical reasons. They considered it a glare from the rover's camera. However, everyone is free to draw their own conclusions. To be fair, it should be noted that although Curiosity leads in terms of Martian discoveries, other probes, such as Opportunity, have also distinguished themselves in this regard. As for Champo, its discovery adds yet another question to the list of the unexplained. While exploring Gale Crater, the probe accidentally made another discovery. It turned out that the clay soils where the mysterious Martian figure was found are much less stable than previously thought. This means that traces of microbial life that may have existed in this location could have been erased from the surface of Mars due to soil activity. So, what conclusions can be drawn from observing the images taken by the Martian rover Curiosity? The more advanced the technology becomes, the clearer we can see the surface of the red planet, vividly imagining its landscapes and scenery. And that's not a bad thing. As they say, After all, we have to live there. But that doesn't make the questions and mysteries any fewer. Quite the opposite. The only planet that can't be seen through even the most powerful modern telescopes. Ancient scholars assumed that beneath its dense cloud layer, there were stifling jungles, under whose canopy disgusting creatures lived, devouring each other around the clock. Others disagreed and were sure that it had blooming paradise bushes, full-flowing seas and rivers rich in fish, and a warm, pleasant climate. Some science fiction writers imagined a vast ocean, the only one on the entire planet. But modern science has completely debunked all these hypotheses. So what does this little planet hide? And what is its fate today? Today we will spend our vacation on our closest neighbor, Venus. It turns out that this is not a future home for Earthlings, but a real hell. But let's take it one step at a time. The namesake of the ancient Roman goddess of love and beauty, the only planet in the solar system named after a woman, comes within 40 million kilometers of Earth at its closest approach and is the brightest point in our sky after the moon. In some conditions, it can even be seen in daylight. This is explained by Venus's remarkable ability to reflect sunlight, which is made possible by its 85-kilometer thick atmospheric blanket, 100 times denser than Earth's. A year on Venus lasts 225 Earth days, while a rotation around its axis takes 243 Earth days. This means that a day on Venus is longer than its own year. The planet rotates in the opposite direction, making it similar to Uranus and Pluto, although its axis tilt is almost perpendicular to its orbit, unlike those objects, which literally spin lying on their sides. The planet's diameter is very similar to Earth's, but due to its extremely slow rotation, Venus does not have a magnetic field. Also, its lonely journey along its orbit is not accompanied by any moons. The atmosphere of Venus is made up of 96% carbon dioxide, with minor traces of nitrogen, argon, and helium, and its clouds consist of concentrated sulfuric acid. A vacation on Venus is something an Earth tourist would never forget, but unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to return home. Many probes have been sent to our mysterious cloudy neighbor, but many missions were doomed to fail. However, some spacecraft did succeed and transmitted detailed data, allowing Earthlings to learn many of Venus's secrets. To properly relax on Venus, a person must keep in mind that they can't do without a special pressure suit. Unfortunately, such a suit hasn't been invented on Earth yet, since on Venus, even lead melts in the nearly 500-degree heat. It's also pointless to take a probe with you, because the sulfuric acid rains will destroy it anyway. Returning to the spacesuit, it must endure pressure 92 times greater than on Earth, similar to being a kilometer underwater. Generally, people with high blood pressure should avoid vacationing on Venus. But even an ordinary tourist who is curious enough to look, for example, at the bottom of Venus's Diana Canyon, should also be careful, because the pressure there is 119 times greater than on Earth. You can't escape the monstrous pressure even on Venus's 11-kilometer peaks. There, the pressure is 45 bars, which is 45 times higher than what we're used to. It's very windy on Venus. This is not an exaggeration. The legendary Mary Poppins would hardly enjoy the Venusian breeze. At an altitude of 60 kilometers in the clouds, winds blow at speeds reaching 400 kilometers per hour. But it's not any easier right above the surface. If you took a stroll for the last time across the vast expanses of the second planet from the sun, you would feel like a punching bag. This effect is possible because the atmosphere of Venus is only 14 times less dense than water, and a wind with a speed of even 1 kilometer per second feels like a powerful blow from a professional heavyweight kickboxer. Although it's very hot on Venus, a traveler would only see a hazy mist, similar to a cloudy day on Earth. If a tourist wants to cool off, they can climb the mountain peaks and enjoy 400 degrees instead of the usual 500. An Earthling, sitting on a rock for the last time, will see the Venusian sunset, which, by the way, can be observed where sunrise should be, and he will hear the dead silence, broken only by fierce gusts of wind and the distinctive sounds of sulfuric acid mixing with the meager remnants of water. The mountains on Venus are very large, up to 100 kilometers across. Many of them look like giant pancakes. Mostly these are volcanoes, whose lava creates such bizarre shapes. The last thing a would-be tourist will realize is the following sad thought. He is dying on a planet far from Earth, which will continue its lonely journey for billions of years, after the unfortunate one is dissolved by corrosive acid, crushed by immense pressure, and all of this is scattered by monstrous winds. Fortunately, these are just our fantasies based on real facts. But who knows? Maybe technological advancements will allow future generations to vacation on the planets of the solar system, and spacewalks will become commonplace. So don't forget to watch the previous, no less exciting episodes to travel virtually across the planets and their moons with the Hubble channel, and to rate our work with huge likes or dislikes. We are improving for you. Goodbye, have a safe journey, subscribe.